Watch this.
I'm never going to give up what it takes to make sure my kids get the education they need and what is beneficial for them.
Apparently, a tax credit won't be the way for Idaho parents to do that, at least not the way the current bill was written. Money to pay for the school of your choice was one vote shy, despite adding one vote to that committee, or maybe because of it. Resolutions and memorials can only take you so far. Now lawmakers are asking to give the governor the ability to secure the U.S.-Mexico border without help or permission from the feds. Speaking of taking it too far, at least one lawmaker has been threatened with being labeled not Republican enough and being told she can't even call herself one.
It is somewhat unusual, along with, I think, everything that has happened in terms of the change in leadership. This session has been somewhat unusual.
Well, unusual is just one way to describe the shakeup of leadership and committees this session for Republicans. Another might be curious. We talked about this last month when we sat down with the newly appointed chair of the House Revenue and Taxation Committee. There was the removal of House Majority Leader Megan Blanksma from that position on February 8th. That's the first move. Unprecedented, it was called. Well, that opened up the door for Representative Jason Monks to take over that role, but he had to give up his spot as chair of House Rev and Tax. That's when Representative David Cannon replaced Representative Monks as chair. Monks, however, stayed on the committee. And then about a week later, Representative Judy Boyle was added to House Rev and Tax, an assignment Speaker Mike Moyle says was due after she abruptly resigned from the House Education Committee in the middle of last session. Okay, so this is where the curious part comes in. Adding a well-known supporter of school choice to a committee where that very bill would be considered, where she could be the swing vote, that's the part that seemed curious. And we asked Chair Cannon about this last month.
I have nothing, I don't have any information. I don't know if that's a coincidence or if that's a plan. I would just be speculating if I weighed in on that.
We also did try to ask Speaker Moyle about it, but we could never nail down a time for an interview. So that brings us to today, when House Bill 447, the Parental Choice Tax Credit Bill, would see its first public test. And here's the other curious part. The bill failed by one vote, partially because of a question asked by the committee's newest member. Andrew Bartline explains.
With the table set for a big choice in House Revenue and Taxation.
You shouldn't have to live on the right side of State Street to get in school where your child has a fighting chance.
Not everyone's sharing the same appetite.
If you don't like what's for dinner, I'm not going to pay for your evening out.
But that's what the school choice tax credit proposes. It would return $5,000 per student taught outside traditional public schools. The program's capped at $50 million.
It's the best fit for my kids.
That's Robbie Hart.
Helps them thrive. And
a single parent of two.
Yeah, unfortunately with inflation and the challenges, I'm actually putting my house up for sale, trying to continue to be frugal.
Because his priorities all funnel back
Hi.
To the family.
Thank you for this time. I drive from Emmett, Idaho to Greenleaf, Idaho to give my kids the education that I believe they need.
140 miles a day.
5 days a week.
And none of it's cheap.
Every year I have to go about finding funds to assist with that.
He's just one part of a larger crowd.
Please do not leave them hungry.
Shopping off menu for education.
The reality for families is that public school is not the perfect fit for every child.
Sort of a self-serving statement.
Lots of stories like that across the state.
For leaders in Catholic education.
Because a lot of the concern was this is just subsidizing wealthy families that already attend your schools.
Most of those families aren't going to take advantage of this. The families that need it are going to be signing up for it very, very quickly.
Because you'll need to get it while it's hot.
Okay, first come, first serve.
Which was just the entry point for the bill's biggest opponent.
Idaho is a national leader in school choice.
Those on the other side of the podium.
Confirm or deny. Where does this provide for a specific increase in choice?
So this isn't about tailoring something to the masses. This is about making sure that we're not leaving out some families or some kids.
And it's been done in a very clever way. Idaho has a Blaine Amendment. That bans public dollars from entering private religious schools.
I live in Phoenix, Arizona.
Seemingly,
And I've been involved in the school choice movement in Arizona for the last 21 years.
that makes Blaine a big hurdle.
Does Arizona have a Blaine Amendment? And if so, how did you get around that?
But Representative Judy Boyle shows us the loophole.
And the constitutional distinction there is that the money goes into an account and all of that money is directed by parents.
And that's just too big of a technicality.
Some of the testimony that we've heard today gives me pause.
For Representative Raymond.
For example, that the voucher system is unconstitutional, so the way we work around that is give money directly to the families.
In a way, that made the choice for him.
Motion has failed by an 8-9 count. We stand adjourned.
I just came here to grovel for the scraps at the table. It's humbling, it's not fun, but that's why I'm here.
Standing up for the best interest of his family, you could say the choice was already made for Robbie, too.
I'm never going to give up what it takes to make sure my kids get the education they need and what is beneficial for them.
Public school organizations widely opposed the bill. Many people opposed it just as taxpayers, too. And if a parent did oppose it in testimony, well, then I must have missed them. Many lawmakers voiced concerns about this $50 million that the program would have been capped at. Well, they think it could be better used elsewhere in the general fund. And going into the session, Brian, we probably would have pegged this piece of legislation or something along these lines as a top 3 topic. Shot down in committee, didn't get past it.
The way this played out is amazing. The way you told that and showed how it just kind of went there from A to B is incredible. But I want to ask about the diocese take that students and parents that are already going to private school aren't going to take advantage of this. All you have to do is look to Arizona, where this is a big problem, and their budget has ballooned because of that.
Yeah, there's a guy from Phoenix that was arguing that point. I have to go back and look at it, but he explained some of those concerns to the committee members, and he had arguments that sounded good, but I'd have to look deeper into it.
Okay, well, there's still some time left. We could see another bill come up before the session is over. Stay tuned. Thanks, Andrew. Speaking of that, lawmakers circled back to fixing the lack of a presidential primary in Idaho. There are a few ideas out there. One that advanced to the full Senate today would allow for a May primary to come back that includes a presidential preference vote. Senate Bill 1415 would once again have the state run that primary election, and political parties could use the results of the primary in their way to select a candidate for president. If a political party wants to do a caucus instead of a primary, well, they're more than welcome to do that. Sponsor Senator Chuck Winder believes the pitch is a sweet spot compromise, that is. Okay, so most farmers haven't even planted crops yet, but lawmakers are already talking about harvesting, but not crops, ballots. Election integrity has been a hot topic since 2020, with absentee ballots at the center of that conversation. Concerned a politically motivated group could collect ballots and select which ones they actually turn in, well, several Idaho lawmakers want to ban the practice of third-party people or groups collecting absentee ballots from voters and then turning them into election offices. That'd be harvesting absentee or mail-in ballots. There are exceptions in the bill to allow for family members, mail carriers, caregivers, and specific election officials. House Bill 599 cleared the House yesterday and now heads to the Idaho Senate. However, it is noted in the fiscal note, where they tell you how much this might cost the state, there'd be no additional costs with this bill because, quote, Idaho does not historically have such problems with ballot harvesting at scale. So how far are Idaho lawmakers willing to go to take on the situation at the southern border? We've seen resolutions and memorials that want to send a message to Congress and the president, but those are just that. They're just messages. Some lawmakers want to see actual action, and they want to see it directed by the governor. Joe Paris joins us now. Joe, I understand the proposal failed. There was an idea to kind of give this to the governor, but it didn't go?
No, and it's a very interesting conversation. It was a bold direction, Brian, and House Bill 464 is titled the Interstate Compact for Border Security. And basically, a state would have to agree with another state, the state being Texas, so state-to-state agreement on dealing with the issue at the southern border without any federal involvement. So this proposed law would have allowed the governor to create an interstate compact on border security without needing congressional approval. Usually you need that, but there is a very specific constitutional provision that allows states like Idaho to act without Congress if facing a, quote, invasion or imminent danger. Invasion and imminent danger is how some describe the situation at the southern border. So the proposal basically gives the governor, which is Governor Brad Little right now, free rein to partner with Texas to share intelligence, provide resources to build physical barriers or surveillance systems on state lands along the Mexico-American border, share law enforcement resources like state police, or take other necessary actions, whatever that means, to secure the border. So yeah, it's a wide open idea, essentially allowing the governor to do whatever he wants. Yes, Governor Little has sent troops to the border for education missions. This would have expanded or allowed for it to be expanded into actual Idaho State Police boots on the ground helping at the border. The committee was open to the idea, but had concerns about giving the governor carte blanche.
It seems like this is giving broad permission, but there's no details. I know it's very difficult for me to vote for it because I don't know what the details are. What could happen here? And when I listened to you speak just now, I think the same things that you shared about rationale to give the governor this kind of authority are the same reasons we tried to take it away during COVID.
Us being the lawmaking authority in the three branches of government, we can change this if we don't like what the governor's done in the next session. I see this type of emergency being different than the last one being COVID, where there was an incentive to extend the emergency, a financial incentive, where in this case, I think there's an incentive to nip it in the bud and keep it under control.
There was some support, though, in the committee. Long story short, this failed by only one vote. So there's a chance we see another run at it in the next few weeks. However, the constitutional basis that we talked about here and the lack of congressional approval, that could all face some pretty steep legal challenges. But it doesn't matter for now, though, because the legislation was defeated by one vote. But Brian, it's something interesting that I'm sure our viewers are thinking about, and Melissa Wintrow touched on it. It's a very different, I guess, trust in the executive branch compared to what we saw during COVID.
But you mentioned the troopers being already sent down there. They're going again in April, I understand. I don't think it's just for education purposes. So doesn't he already have this power?
So yes and no. And the thing here is that the legislature, they like, as we know, they like to put their stamp of approval and say, we're okay with this. We're good with state resources going this way. And as we saw in the vote, the committee, they were not okay with it. And you heard Senator Wintrow and other senators say, this is a lot of free power for the governor. Yeah. And they know, Governor Little's the governor today, but this would have been going forward.
The executive branch should be free to do executive things, though, I guess.
I guess so, yeah.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
Maybe you saw a few thunderstorms around the area for this afternoon. I know I saw one. Some pretty good rain, gusty winds, as well as hail that came down with that. Still, that possibility exists even later into this evening. So we'll describe that. If you take a look here at the latest Futurecast, here's the forecast. See Boise doing okay. Here's a thunderstorm that's just east of Ontario. You can see some light snow showers, kind of the same thing as what's happening in the valley. Rain showers, snow showers off and on with a chance of a thunderstorm. As we continue pushing those through, you see they still continue through 7:30 tonight. About 10:30, most of it starts to go away, but there could still be a light snow shower along the foothills or a light shower that moves through. But tomorrow, especially when you get into the afternoon, everything clears up. We're going to be getting into some sunshine, and after tomorrow, the temperatures start to warm up. But for right now, this is the latest satellite, which shows you real time what's going on outside. And you can see some of those spotty areas. They're kind of popcorn type related thunderstorms. And as you move through, you'll see that they just pop up with some of the sun in the afternoon that develops some of the heating, so that it just moves on in. Now tonight, we're still going to see more of those, even as we go down toward Twin Falls, the same thing. Still some showers as well as some thunderstorms that'll be around the area. I've got to point out here to the west that there's still a few scattered showers. That's why we're going to maintain that overnight and into the early morning hours, that there could be a very light shower that moves by. After that, you notice this circle that's starting out here? A gigantic ridge of high pressure. And that comes in, it's going to be basically drying things up and bringing in sunshine and heating things up. So for now, you see the snow that's coming down in most of the mountain locations. Look at the 7-day forecast, especially the sunshine next week. And look at those warmer temperatures, even the 70s.
And stuff like that.
I think we just need to make sure that the party reflects the people instead of a faction of the party. I think that's been kind of the problem.
Well, it's a problem that's been bubbling under the surface, oozing toward this solution for a couple of years now. Back in the summer of 2022, under the new leadership of Chair Dorothy Moon, Idaho's GOP established their new party platform, a return to conservative principles, they called it. They also passed their state party rules, which have been changed a couple of times since then. But Article 20, Idaho Republican Party platform enforcement, has been a staple since the summer of 2023. That's been giving county and central and legislative district committees the ability to censure a lawmaker for not following said party platform closely enough. And several have wielded that power several times, something we highlighted on the 208 last fall. But last week, one committee in Bonneville County took the ultimate step allowed in the party rules playbook. They have not only censured a sitting senator and representative, but they claim one of them, leading up to a closed primary election, is no longer allowed to run as a Republican, something she found out about only yesterday.
I'm first going to discuss Stephanie Mickelsen.
Last Thursday evening, the Legislative District 32 Republican Committee met to decide whether Representative Stephanie Mickelsen and Senator Kevin Cook violated Idaho's Republican Party platform. However, neither lawmaker attended to defend their state house voting record.
I didn't attend because, for one thing, I was in the middle of the legislative session, and my most important responsibility is to be here to make votes for my constituents.
She's playing a public game.
So the meeting went on without them. And the result?
We want to live in a society where somebody can promise anything and then not abide by that promise.
Wasn't much of a surprise to Representative Mickelsen.
I figured that it was coming at some point. It was just a matter of when.
It's an outcome that's been coming since last fall.
I personally think that there's a lot of hubris there on their part to think that they know more than the voters.
When Mickelsen was first censured for her votes last session. But last week, in executive session, LD 32 took it a step further, censuring Representative Mickelsen again with respect to school choice and parental rights, with respect to party disaffiliation, and for conduct unbecoming of a Republican representative. But also, based on Article 20 of the party platform, resolved Representative Mickelsen isn't a real Republican. What does this mean?
Well, I think for them, they think it means that they can stop me from running as a Republican for the next 5 years.
And can they?
Well, I don't think they can. I think I meet the qualifications of being a Republican in this state, and I have every right to affiliate the way I choose and to run in that party.
Okay, so their argument is you signed the party platform agreement and the party affiliation agreement, basically saying you agreed to follow the party platform.
Right. Well, I signed the party platform and affiliation pledge in 2022, in January or February of 2022, with a few exceptions. What they forget is that then they went and have had multiple meetings since then and have changed that party platform and loyalty and affiliation pledge. So they came back to me in January and said, hey, we want you to fill out this questionnaire and re-sign the party affiliation pledge. And to which I responded, I will not be signing any more party or loyalty and affiliation pledges, because then they turn around and they beat you up with it on the other side. So the question is where do I owe my loyalties? My loyalties are to the state constitution, to the United States Constitution, and to my constituents, because that's ultimately who voted me into this seat. And I'm a Republican. I'm tired of being told I'm not a Republican because I'm not pure according to their purity test.
But according to the cover letter from District 32 Chairman Doyle Beck, this is not about any purity test. This is about an integrity test. Do you believe that?
No, I don't believe that at all. That's always been what this has been about, is that they want to purge the party of the people that they don't think fit their ideal of what is a Republican.
So now what?
I'm going to continue to run my campaign. I'm going to run for office. I've already filed my paperwork last week early on, and I intend to go out and campaign, and I think that you will find I have lots of support out in my community.
Does this change anything that you do?
No, I think it makes me more impassioned to go out and to stand up for those people in my district, especially for the people within our area that continually are being bullied by this faction of the party. If Mr. Beck is who the people want, I think he ought to file, and I think he ought to run on a ballot. But I think he and I both know that he could never get elected by the people in Bonneville County.
Some might say that this grief isn't worth it.
You know, at times I've asked myself if this grief is worth it, but at the end of the day, I think we have to step back and we have to say, if not me, then who? And how many people can stand up to this relentless amount of attacks that come from this faction of the party?
Okay, so the question is this even legal? Well, the Secretary of State told us today they are still looking into it. We did reach out to Legislative District 32 Chair Doyle Beck, but his response to us today was the same as last time. Your reputation precedes you. I'm out. No thanks. Everyone I talk to says you're unfair and unbalanced, one-sided. Many people are saying, okay, so to be fair, to be more than one-sided, we gave him every opportunity to tell the committee's side of the story. The choice to censure Representative Mickelsen wasn't unanimous, by the way. In fact, the 3 precinct committee members who didn't agree with the decision, well, they submitted their protest in writing. And Senator Cook, who was also censured by the district committee but not told he couldn't run as a Republican, has the full backing of the Senate Majority Caucus. They sent out this statement today stating they strongly support Senator Cook as a respected member of our caucus. He works for his constituents and upholds the core conservative principles of our party. The attempt to exploit the electoral process and dictate party allegiance is a dangerous overreach, undermining the fundamental principles of our democratic system. We support Senator Cook and all who face attempts at intimidation by groups seeking to usurp the power rightfully held by the electorate. All right, short amount of time. We're going to try to touch on as many topics as we can. This one from David Welch. If parents that desire a better education for their children will let them get involved at the public school where they live. From my experience, very few ever participate in their children's education. Border situation is bad. It's agreed. Both parties agree to this. However, when a bipartisan bill came up, the ones that shot it down was the party that yelled the most because of their party leader. How does that make any sense? The border to our country should be secured by our country. Our country. In other words, the federal resources, not by individual state funds. That's from Mike. How about this one? It sounds to me like the Republican Party is becoming more like a dictatorship, says Don in Caldwell. Many people wondering when they got so powerful to make these rules. Like I said, it goes back to that summer meeting in 2022. Another one coming up this summer. We'll see you tomorrow.